A very good evening to all of you. India's increasing eminence in the global order has no better indicator than the G20 presidency. We are honored to have with us today Mr. Muktesh Pardeshi, who is currently the Special Secretary in India's G20 Secretariat. A very warm welcome to you, sir. Mr. Pardeshi joined the Indian Foreign Service in 1991. He has served as the High Commissioner of India to New Zealand and has concurrently been accredited as High Commissioner of India to Samoa, Niue and the Cook Islands. He has been Ambassador of India to Mexico and Belize. Mr. Pardeshi has received numerous awards, including the prestigious National Award on E-Governance Gold 2014-15 and the Web Ratna Platinum Award 2014. Mr. Pardeshi has also served on the board of directors of the Security Printing and Minting Corporation of India Limited. Joining him is Ms Archana Kapoor, founder TRF. Thank you, Mr. Pardeshi, for honoring us with your presence today. We request you to join us on the stage. Thank you.
First of all, thank you, sir. It's a matter of pride for not me, but everyone in this room and some who have left to have the G20 logo here on our banner for community radios and for the leaders. I personally and strongly believe that G20 can only be a success if you involve all of us community radios, 415 of us, to give the message to our communities, reaching out to more than 120 crore people together and taking your messages, the messages of the government, to the people and bridging the gap. I think that is the role that we play and we cannot be ignored, sir. So that is one of the reasons why I went to you, and thank you so much. I met Mr. Muktesh Pardeshi not only when he was digitizing the whole process of passports and ensuring that we get our passports within no time, but I had the privilege of meeting him when he was Ambassador of India in Mexico, and we had some very interesting conversations, and I'm so privileged that I'm sitting with him here today. So thank you, sir, for coming. Thank you, sir, for making time. Sir, I would like you to first tell us a little about G20, the thinking behind it, why do we need to feel so proud about it, and then I'll come to the other questions.
I would like to thank Archana Kapoor ji for inviting me to share some perspectives on India's G20 presidency. What is G20? What are the priorities of G20? And how G20 could connect to people. Since we are at the radio festival, I must congratulate SMART on completing the Silver Jubilee. That's a great moment, and I believe this is the 6th or 7th radio festival, so I congratulate you on taking this initiative and bringing us together under one platform. As we are participating in radio festival, I would like to play a 45-sec radio jingle to connect with you first.
लोकतंत्र की जननी अपनी वसुधैव कुटुंबकम की परंपरा को एक भव्य रूप देने जा रही है G20 की अध्यक्षता के साथ।
अगले एक साल में हमारा प्रयत्न रहेगा कि G20 नए विचारों की परिकल्पना के लिए और सामूहिक एक्शन को गति देने के लिए एक ग्लोबल प्राइम मूवर की तरह काम करे।
G20 की बैठकें देश के विभिन्न भागों में आयोजित होंगी ताकि पूरे विश्व को भारत की अद्भुत विविधता, परंपरा और समृद्ध सांस्कृतिक विरासत का भरपूर अनुभव मिल सके। तो आइए मिलकर दुनिया का कल बेहतर बनाएं। एक पृथ्वी, एक कुटुंब, एक भविष्य।
Friends, let me brief you a little about what is G20, and since this is a very well-informed audience, and as you connect and transmit, broadcast the message of G20 to the people, I would like to understand what is G20 all about. what are the priorities of India's G20 presidency, and how do we connect with the people. G20 is a grouping of 19 industrialized and emerging economies of the world, plus European Union. So it's a group of 19 countries and one international organization. It was in '99 that for the first time G20 met in the backdrop of multiple financial crises which were happening in '90s, led by the Asian financial crisis. For next 10 years or so, they met at the level of finance ministers. And India has been one of the founding member and has participated in the financial meeting since '99. In 2008, when the US and some other countries were struggling with another financial crisis, that time a crisis meeting was convened by the US president at the level of the prime minister and president. And that was the beginning of the higher level of G20 gatherings. In the beginning, for a few years, they met twice a year to resolve the problem, and thereafter it was decided that they will continue to meet once a year. So this is broadly the history of the G20, the meetings and the summit. So what happens? There is no permanent secretariat. A member is given the task to run its presidency, to put forward structure G20 secretariat and run it for 1 year and then pass it on to the other country. So from 1st December, we took over from Indonesia, which was the president for a year. So our presidency began on 1st December and it will continue until 30th November. Thereafter, we pass on to Brazil. A group of 3 countries called Troika, they lead the agenda setting process. So as of now, we have Indonesia as the past president, India as the current president, and Brazil as the future president as Troika. In the history of G20, it's for the first time that 3 countries from the global south, from the developing world, are setting the agenda of a G20. That's a major development. After Brazil, it would be South Africa. So the voice of global south is going to be articulated for some time to come. So that's a golden opportunity for India and other major emerging economies in the global south to participate and decide about the global governance. Now, in the beginning, at the G20 discussed about the financial matter, stability of the financial world. That's how the G20 had evolved. But in 2008, when it started meeting at the level of the president and the prime minister, a track called Sherpa track was added. I'm explaining like a classroom so that, you know, when you interact and when you speak to your audience, some of the things are understood. So one is the finance track. That's the oldest track of the G20. And there are several issues which are being discussed, like international financial architecture. They discuss about also the reforms in IMF or the World Bank. They discuss about how the finance has to connect with the infrastructure development, sustainable finance. Climate, the financing is a major discussion point. Reform in international taxation, whether a corporate group should pay in the country where it is operating. Then we have the financial task force, the money laundering. All these issues are on the agenda of the financial track. So in 2008, when it was elevated to the summit level, the leaders appointed their personal envoys called Sherpa. You might have come across the word Sherpa. So Sherpa, they carry forward the agenda of the leader, because the leader does not have all the time for negotiation and drafting communique. So Sherpa, on behalf of the leader, he would lead what is called the Sherpa track. So one was the finance track. In Government of India, the finance track is led by the Department of Economic Affairs, which is a constituent department of the Ministry of Finance. The Sherpa track involves large number of ministries, and some 20 ministries of the government are involved in issues other than which could be called strictly financial. So under the Sherpa track, we have Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Department of Personnel and Training, Culture, we have Ministry of IT, Education, Labor and Employment, Environment and Climate Change, Ministry of Power, Health, Trade and Investment, and Tourism. All these ministries are subject, and their agenda points are subject matters of discussion under G20. So, Sherpa track, finance track. This is called governmental track. All the discussions which will happen like a intergovernmental forum. And it's not necessary that, in the sense, it's not that in 1 year we can finalize and accomplish the task. Sometimes it's a long drawn process. What is important is India at the driving seat. We would like to bring the agenda items which is of our liking and which concerns the voice of the global south. Apart from the governmental track, there are several engagement groups. The idea was how to involve the civil society at large. They engage with the G20 process through the engagement groups, and there are more than 10 engagement groups. Some prominent engagement groups are, and they are all called 20. So you have Business 20, dealing with the trade and other matters, which is led by Confederation of Indian Industry. We have Think 20, which is a grouping of think tanks of G20 countries. We have Labor 20, which is a conglomeration of the labor unions coming from the G20 countries. We have Parliament 20, and as the name suggests, it would be a gathering of the parliaments of the 20 countries. Science 20, we have Supreme Audit Institutions 20, involving the CAG. Startup 20. Startup 20 is an initiative initiated by India. Earlier, this was subsumed within the framework of the Business 20. But considering that India has done well in the startup sector, and here we have an opportunity to attract the attention and also the investment to start up the ecosystem, we decided to bring in another engagement group called Startup 20. We have Urban 20, consisting of municipalities and urban bodies. We have Women 20, Civil Society 20, and Youth 20. So you will see how engagement groups are carefully selected to take the message and engage the civil society in the G20 processes. You would recall a few years back when G7 meeting used to take place in Europe, and there was a narrative of anti-globalization, sentiments were flourishing in Europe. There were some demonstrations. So it was consciously decided to involve civil society to make it a part of the G20, the process. So having explained to you the basic structure of the G20, the presidency, the summit, how it works, the Troika system, the finance track, Sherpa track, engagement groups. Let me now come to what are the goals or what are the aspirations, what are the ambitions of India's G20 presidency. There are a few areas where India would like to attract the attention of one of the influential grouping. Our idea is also to dovetail the Indian narrative into the G20 process. Some of the aspects of the Indian narrative which will be brought in the G20 process is, for instance, digital public infrastructure. Though a developing country, it is a remarkable fact that India has done well in the sector of digital transformation, whether it's Jan Dhan or Aadhaar or even the passport project which I led for 6 years. There are several areas where India has shown tremendous promise and progress in digital transformation. So this is one area which is being brought in G20 narrative of India's G20 process. In climate change, you would have seen that there is a focus on a concept called life. And life is one aspect which connects with the community radio. The message of sustainable and simple living has been a part of our ethos and cultural tradition. This is one area where the government and society at large will expect the participation of broadcasters and the community radio in taking the message forward. While another area is global health. Yet another area is a mother of a democracy. See, we are not only the largest democracy. Recently, some studies have shown that India is actually the oldest democracy. Democracy was born here, not in Europe. If it was evolved in Europe, it comes a little later. So when we go through the history books, Vaishali, where there was a concept of Ganatantra, through Ganas, the democracy was born in India. This is again a very powerful narrative that India can share with the world community. And it's a great source of pride for all of us that in spite of all difficulties and challenges that we face, we have sustained ourselves, we have emerged victorious and stronger as a democracy. Friend, when I serve as ambassador or high commission abroad, this aspect is something which you are very proud of this fact that there are several countries which became independent in 1940s or 50s. Where we are today the largest democracy, and we can claim that democracy, this is a place where democracy was nurtured, and this gave birth to democracy. So this is another area for development, the whole concept of sustainable development. How do we achieve sustainable development goals, and particularly the role of women? That would be focus of our G20 presidency. The role and participation of women in development is a strong message which will go from G20 presidency. We also promoting millet. This is the International Year of Millet. It's coinciding with the G20 presidency. And when the United Nations declared 2023 to be International Year of Millet, this was at the behest. India took the leadership in taking it to the United Nations. So it's incumbent for us to promote the idea of millet. It goes with our economic geography of the country. It's not only drought resistant and it's capable to grow in dry areas. So it gives sustenance and livelihood to a large number of farmers. There are discussions and there are studies showing the health benefits of the millet. So this is again, a narrative where community radio can actively participate in carrying forward the message of G20 and International Year of Millet. Finally, I'll come to a point how we are making G20 a people's G20. And that's directly relevant to this group. G20 is a diplomatic exercise. Meetings happen. Most of the meetings are closed door. Communiques are issued. Press releases are done. And some sound bites are made here and there. And that's all. But that's not the approach of our leadership. In the beginning, when strategy was made, how to make India's G20 presidency unique, this idea was discussed and we came up with the idea of taking the G20, its message, its and how to engage people in the entire G20, the process. So when we look at making G20, it's uniquely Indian. First is to raise the voice of the global south, and the secondly, to make it a people's G20. So what we are doing, the directive came from the Honorable Prime Minister. Let's take G20 meetings to all over India. No country has ever done. Most of the countries had done G20 meetings, and there are more than 200 meetings. I'm not counting about several meetings which will be held by the engagement groups, but there are notified 215 meetings and plus. Most of the countries will hold these meetings in very select locations where infrastructure would be available. In our case, the directive has come that we have to take these meetings to all the interior and far-flung areas. The core message is that people from north to south, from east to west, they get a sense of participation in the biggest and the mega diplomatic exercise which India is undertaking. So all these 215 meetings are spread over in all states and union territories. We have never done any event in our history at this scale where each state and union territory is going to partake and participate and see directly how diplomatic events are conducted. So when we take this meeting to different states and union territories, we are involving the state, we are involving the civil society. We are reaching out to civil society through the multiple engagement groups, but there is increased focus on the students and youth. So we came up with the idea to participate in any state festival. I mean, festival, not necessarily religious festival. There are several festivals which keep on happening, like Khajuraho festival or Hornbill festival in Nagaland, Sangai festival in Manipur, Kite festival in Gujarat. So we decided to participate and become a co-branding partner of all these initiatives. So generally we are there in most of the events which are happening throughout the country this year. And my participation in your event is also part of that Jan Bhagidari approach. So without much cost, the government is able to share the message with a large number of people. And through you, we reach out to the people directly. So thank you very much for giving this opportunity. So when we speak about Jan Bhagidari events, and it's through the Jan Bhagidari events that the community radios could be connected whenever events are happening in your region, state or locality. So the first category of the Jan Bhagidari events with which we are associating are art and cultural events, and I gave some example. We are there in Nagaland in Hornbill Festival. That actually coincided with India's beginning of G20 presidency on 1st December. It was a powerful symbol. In Hornbill Festival in Northeast Nagaland, where G20 and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and G20 Secretariat was involved. Just imagine the powerful message of the government. You are participating in an event which may not be so widely known. So for us, it's not that the festival which is widely known we would be participating with. We are picking up festivals and events which may be less known, but we participate, and through this they also get mainstream. Sangai Festival, people came to know through G20 participation that there is something called Sangai Festival in Manipur, and people heard about the festival in other states and outside, beyond India. The second is, you have exhibitions and book fairs. So for instance, at the forthcoming New Delhi World Book Fair, we are participating as a co-branding partner. There are several interactive competitions going on with the help of Ministry of Education and other NGOs. We are also participating wherever it's possible in marathon or cycle rallies, etc. On 1st December, when we took over as presidency, we took over as the president of the G20 group. The 100 the monuments were illuminated throughout India. We are reaching out to university students through, we have selected 75 universities where academics and well-known researchers are going and participating and giving lectures on the theme of G20 and associated agenda items. We'll be bringing out commemorative coins and stamps. This list is not exhaustive. This is just an indicative list to give you an idea that wherever we can take benefit of Jan Bhagidari events, we will be doing it. So if you have any event planned in your state or region, look for those events, and the best way to track is the social media sites of the G20. The website is g20.org. G20.org is also handle for tweet, which gives you an idea of the events taking place in your locality, and also it talks about the forthcoming events. To take the G20 process to the people level, what we have done, and that's particularly Indian innovation, is to have side events. So while the G20 meetings could be closed door, on a broader theme, we have a side event where larger audience is involved with ministerial participation of think tanks and the related bodies. So look for those opportunities. If some meeting is happening in your region or place, please, you are encouraged to register and participate in at least those side events. And through local PIB, we also reach out to local media for covering the events. Those are notified once again through our website and social media, the handles. So friends, this is broadly the kind of outlay of what G20 is all about, what are India's priorities, and how do we carry forward the agenda of G20 over the next 6 to 8 months. Thank you very much for your attention.
मेरे तो सर बहुत कुछ सिंपल से सवाल हैं, हो सकता है आपको थोड़े कठिन भी लगे. आप जन भागीदारी की बात करते हैं. हम लोग यहाँ पर 400 से ऊपर स्टेशंस हैं. हम लोग को किसी भी चीज़ में नहीं इन्वॉल्व किया गया है. प्रधानमंत्री जी मन की बात करते हैं, हम लोग सब उसको चलाते हैं, हम लोग सब सुनते हैं, उनकी आवाज़ को ज़मीन तक ले जाते हैं. But how do we become a part of it as a collective? That is something we want to know. And I think that we would really like, and I speak on behalf of all my colleagues here, those who are here and not here, that we would also like to be part of it because we are the voice of the people. So I would like you to answer that.
Thank you. No, this is a very pertinent question, and I take on board. Ministry of INB and other information platforms of the government are closely working with the G20 Secretariat. This point I will take it to Secretary Information and Broadcasting, how community radio could be involved. I am not sure the structure, how does it work, but I have my colleague Ankita here. She's from the information service, she would know it better. But definitely I intend to take it forward to the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, how community radio stations, and they could be effectively channelized in not only the G20, in overall messaging, overall dissemination policy of the government of India. So I will take it.
Thank you so much, sir. Because, sir, everything that you were mentioning and I was taking notes, we all work on health. We are the mirror image of democracy because we are also by the people, for the people, and of the people. This is the only platform which is not commerce-driven. We are doing it out of passion. We are doing it for the love of the communities. And as we've been talking in the last 2 days, that even if one listener benefits from what we are doing or what we are saying, we feel that our job is well done. So I think that some of these messages which are happening and the discussions which are happening in closed doors need to be, communicated to communities because ultimately they are also going to benefit by these discussions. So thank you so much for promising to take this up. So most of our radio stations work with farming communities. And I think that with climate change, and we've been talking about it a lot all day, millets may be one of the ways that we can, because you don't need much water, it grows in various conditions. So I think millets are very important. I would also urge you to speak with the Ministry of Agriculture to involve community radios in that, sir, because as Special Secretary G20, at least for the next 6 to 8 months, we can take your message to the communities and we can, go to various ministries through you. So I would really urge you to help us with that.
Once again, very pertinent point. Ministry of Agriculture is working in a very ambitious manner to promote the usage of millet, not only in India, but also abroad. So when we are preparing a delegate kit or gifts kit or the menus at 215 places, we have millet as inseparable part of the selection of gifts or selection of menu. All hotel chains, and we have driven this agenda, have been informed about this, and the chefs of all leading chain, they have come up with very innovative dishes involving millet products. So this will be the focus of our presidency and of course the Ministry of Agriculture's initiative. But once again, I will, what we could do, we could connect you with the PIB officer who would be dealing with the Ministry of Agriculture. I know that in on the sidelines of agriculture meeting, we are having exhibitions also on millet. So they already have some exhibitions. If they have any online exhibitions which could be shared with the community radio stations for your information and dissemination, that would be good. But we, once again, I promise that I'll take this message to Ministry of Agriculture.
Sir, I have a long list of asks, but I'll only restrict it to now 2 more. One is, sir, that I would like to share with you and your team the list of radio stations and you are going to 250 districts, of course, the 28 states and UTs. If our community radios could also be invited to learn, to be there, even if it is only outside in the side events, or even as partners for the press meets, I think that the message will reach out to another 5 lakh people, 8 lakh people in their communities. So with your permission, I'll share it with Ankita, I'll share it. And if you can, I'm happy to sit with them and work out where it is happening, because I talked to Madam Smriti and she said, abhi April tak ka to fixed hai, to at least till April. If it isn't happening in any of the districts where our community radios are, they should also be involved and they should also feel a part of this Jan Jan Andolan and be part of the Jan Jan Bhagidari. Sure. Thank you. Thank you. And my last request is, sir, again you'll have to talk to MIB. These audios are lovely. Our RJs will not only play them, but will take away from what you have said today and add the RJ links to these audios. So if DAVP can give these ads to our community radio stations, we promise you that we will multiply it many-fold and talk about what you have told.
It will be done soon. So once we have the email contacts of all of you, we will share not only the jingle and videos, anything else that we have which could be helpful for you.
Thank you so much, sir. Sir, you have accepted all my demands. I think I feel so humbled. I just hope that we can make it happen in these 6-8 months that are left. My colleague Jitendra wants to ask a question. He runs a station in Vidisha in Madhya Pradesh, and it is a farmer-driven station. I've been to his station. His station operates right in the center of the mandi. So it's a beautiful place.
नमस्कार सर, मेरा क्वेश्चन नहीं है, बट मैं ये कह रहा हूँ कि इसी में ऐड ऑन करते हुए आपकी आज की स्पीच भी अगर हमें मिलती है तो हम अपने कम्युनिटी रेडियो स्टेशंस पे वो भी अलग अलग डिफरेंट लैंग्वेजेस में हम लोग ब्रॉडकास्ट करेंगे.
वो तो हम थोड़ा सा ले भी लेंगे सेक्रेटेरिएट से कुछ अलग अलग भाषाओं में, एंड वी विल शेयर इट.
हम लोग आपके साथ वो मन की बात जिसमें प्रधानमंत्री ने G20 के बारे में बोला था नवंबर के अंत में, वो भी अवेलेबल अगर नहीं है तो अंकिता वो भी लिंक हम लोग भेज देंगे.
और आपने भी G20 की बात की कि सेमिनार के माध्यम से भी इसको आगे बढ़ाया जा सकता है और लोगों तक पहुंचाया जा सकता है. तो सेमिनार किस प्रकार से किए जाए और वो मिलेंगे कैसे, इस पर थोड़ा सा प्रकाश डालेंगे तो बहुत अच्छा रहेगा.
सेमिनार 2-3 तरह से चल रहे हैं. एक तो चल रहा है जो G20 का जो गवर्नमेंटल मीटिंग है उसके साइड लाइन्स पे एक कोई साइड इवेंट हो जा रहा है. जैसे अगर एनवायरमेंटल ट्रैक का मीटिंग है, इनसाइड मीटिंग रूम है तो बहुत फॉर्मल डिस्कशन है, निगोसिएशन का है, ठीक. बट उसके साइड लाइन में एक दिन पहले हम लोग इवेंट कर रहे हैं जिसमें फ्री विलिंग डिस्कशन, G20 डेलीगेट्स भी होते हैं और हमारे या एक्टिविस्ट हैं, रिसर्चर हैं, एक्सपर्ट है सब्जेक्ट में, वो फ्री विलिंग डिस्कशन है. वहाँ से कुछ पॉइंट हैं वो वो कैरी फॉरवर्ड करते हैं इंटर गवर्नमेंटल डिस्कशन में. तो एक तो ये है, मतलब साइड इवेंट्स G20 के साथ. दूसरा है यूनिवर्सिटी में सेमिनार करना. तो 56 जगह पे जहाँ जहाँ मीटिंग्स हम लोग का हो रहा है वहाँ एक यूनिवर्सिटी को डेफिनेटली सिलेक्ट किया गया है जहाँ पे एक हम सेमिनार वगैरह कर रहे हैं. जैसे मध्य प्रदेश में मुझे लगता है कि माखनलाल चतुर्वेदी विश्वविद्यालय में ही हुआ है, एक सेमिनार हो गया है वहाँ पे जहाँ तक मुझे पता है. तो आइडिया ये है कि अगर पुणे में G20 का मीटिंग होना है तो 10-15 दिन पहले एक उसका प्रिपरेटरी मीटिंग जैसा हो जाए. उससे वहाँ के जर्नलिस्ट, वहाँ के जो लोग उस फील्ड में काम कर रहे हैं, उन एक तो थोड़ा इन्फॉर्मेशन शेयरिंग हो गया और वो लिख भी सकते हैं. और जब मीटिंग हो रही है तो फिर उनका इन्फॉर्मेशन लेवल होगा उस मीटिंग के बारे में वो ज़्यादा. सो वी आर ऑल्सो क्रिएटिंग कैपेसिटी. प्रधानमंत्री ने एक चीज़ बहुत शुरू में ही बोला कि मीटिंग तो हो जाती हैं। एक मीटिंग से कंट्री में एक्सपर्टीज क्रिएट करना है, कैपेसिटी क्रिएट करना है। उन्होंने बोला कि स्टूडेंट को, अगर आज एक स्टूडेंट पार्टिसिपेट करता है, वो अगले 20-25 साल के बाद हम कोई और बड़ा इवेंट करेंगे तो वो कहीं लीडरशिप पोजीशन पे हो सकता है, कहीं प्रोफेसर हो या किसी भी पोजीशन पे हो, वो कंट्रीब्यूट करे। तो इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर के साथ साथ देश में कैपेसिटी क्रिएट किया जाए, तो सेमिनार के माध्यम से भी एक तरह से वो हो रहा है। तीसरा है, जितने इंगेजमेंट ग्रुप्स हैं वो भी पूरे साल में उन्होंने मुहिम लगाया हो, जैसे यूथ 20 है या विमेन 20 है, उन्होंने अपना एक टास्क फोर्स बनाया हुआ है और पूरे भारत में जगह जगह पे हो सकता है बहुत बड़ी बड़ी मीटिंग ना करें, बट सेक्टोरल एरियाज़ को पिकअप करके वो मीटिंग कर रहे हैं, सेमिनार कर रहे हैं, ब्रेनस्टॉर्मिंग कर रहे हैं, और वहाँ से फिर जो आइडियाज़ जर्मिनेट होगा उस आइडियाज़ को क्रिस्टलाइज करके फिर वो गवर्नमेंट को सबमिट करें। सो ये 3 तरीके हैं जिसके तहत सेमिनार हो। आप लोग इसके अलावा कई एजेंसीज हैं वो अपने सेमिनार कर रहे हैं, और उसमें G20 एक टॉपिक भी डाला गया। जैसे आज ये सेमिनार जो हो रहा है 2 दिन, इसमें बहुत टाइमली था कि आपने 2 दिनों के जो इवेंट हुआ उसमें G20 की टॉपिकलिटी और रेलेवेंस को समझते हुए आपने एक सेशन कर दिया। तो ये भी एक उसी तरह से प्रयास है हमारा और आपका भी।
सर, मेरा नाम नियाज है और मैं उड़ीसा से हूँ। हम लोग एक कैंपेन चला रहे हैं पिछले 2 साल से, यूथ फॉर वाटर कैंपेन। तो उसमें हम लोग कई सारे कॉलेजेस और अलग को लेकर हम लोग स्कूल बच्चे, कॉलेजेस को हम लोग प्रोग्राम करते हैं। इसी तहत हम लोग कभी उड़ीसा में जो वर्ल्ड हॉकी डे हुआ, जो कि मैम बोले नहीं, मैं ऐड करने चाहता हूँ, कम्युनिटी रेडियो केवल ब्रॉडकास्ट नहीं कर रहा है आज के दिन में, वो नैरोकास्ट भी कर रहा है और सोशल मीडिया में बहुत मतलब उन लोग का इंपॉर्टेंस पर ट्वीट कर रहे हैं, इंस्टाग्राम में डाल रहे हैं। तो हम चाहते हैं कि जो हम प्रोग्राम कर रहे हैं, अगर हम G20 को टैग कर रहे हैं, थोड़ा सा रिकग्निशन मिल जाएगा और उसे अगर रीट्वीट कर दे तो उससे हमारा और मनोबल बढ़ जाएगा। ये होने से हमको बहुत अच्छा लगेगा।
करते हैं, लेकिन हम लोग और कॉन्शियसली जो हमारी कम्युनिकेशन टीम है उसको हम इस पॉइंट को भी स्ट्रेस करेंगे। सो हमारे जो हैंडल्स हैं, कुछ हैंडल्स हैं जो प्राइवेट इंडिविजुअल्स भी चला रहे हैं, उनको भी आप टैग कर सकते हैं। दे मे नॉट बी ऑथराइज्ड चैनल, I cannot promote it openly, but there are several who are doing their sincere work. उनको भी टैग करें। I'm sure things will be picked. हम करेंगे कुछ। पॉइंट नोट कर लिया आपने।
This is the last one because sir also has to.
नमस्ते सर, मैं महाराष्ट्र से रेडियो मनभावन से हूँ, अमोल देशमुख। मैं अर्चना जी, आदरणीय अर्चना जी की बात को ही थोड़ा आगे लेके जाना चाहता हूँ। जो ऑडियोज़ है, जैसे अर्चना जी ने बात किया है कि MIB से DAVP थ्रू मिलता है, तो बहुत सारे नए स्टेशन आए हैं जो DAVP इम्पैनल नहीं है। तो यदि ये होता है तो सबको मिलना चाहिए। यही मैं एक बात सबकी ओर से करता हूँ, नए स्टेशन की ओर से। थैंक यू।
नो, जो हमारा रेडियो मैसेज है या और भी कुछ, हमारे लिए DAVP नॉन DAVP कोई मतलब नहीं रखता। जब हमने जन भागीदारी की बात की,
सर मैं अमोल जी आपको बस यहाँ थोड़ा सा ठीक करना चाहूँगी कि अब जैसे ही आपका गोपा साइन होता है और आप करते हैं, आप ऑटोमेटिकली एम्पैनल्ड हैं।
मैं सभी रेडियो की तरफ से अर्चना मैम को धन्यवाद देना चाहूँगी। सभी रेडियो की मन की बात आप तक उन्होंने पहुँचा दी है, उसके लिए उनके बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
थैंक यू सो मच फॉर दिस।